Exactly. So welcome, my lovelies, and anyone who chooses to tune in for the replay or might join us in the next couple minutes. I should have asked this already. Can everyone hear me fine? Volume's okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are here. It's kind of funny. I labeled this like a guide to kinky solo play because like it was a catchy phrase, but it's not really a guide. It's like all of us just sharing our experience, whatever comes up, all things kink, self-pleasure, which as we discussed on the last panel, like we kind of re-articulated self-pleasure as also potentially partnered pleasure slash like non-sexual pleasure because it's all pleasure experienced by self, just in like different contexts. So I don't want that label to pigeonhole our conversation because we are not here for that. We are here for like the utmost expansion and like the sexiest way possible. So I always like to start these with reading what I channeled when I went into the Akashic Records of this specific event. So I'll give, I know you've all probably heard this before, but I'll give a little debrief on what the Akashic Records are first. And the way that I kind of visualize it or theorize or whatever, conceptualize, is the records are like this giant, beautiful, like floor to ceiling library, like the wooden shelves and like the really pretty like shiny wood floors with like the engravings on them and everything. And like on these shelves, there's a whole bunch of beautiful leather bound books. And each soul has a book. And within that book is all the information of all of that soul's incarnations, past, future, present, concurrent. And so when I access the Akashic Records of myself or I access the Akashic Records of this event, I'm accessing all the information that corresponds to my soul or kind of the soul of this event. Because it's kind of like as soon as something comes to fruition, like it's tied to that soul's like records, but like lineage almost in a sense. If we're talking like multiple incarnations. And so for this, just as a way to ground and kind of set the intention for the virtual space that we are holding and entering, I channeled a message from the records and also got some guidance on the questions. And I know I sent, this is kind of more for the four of us, I sent a card through the chat, right? Like as I was sitting down to do this. And then this message came through and I'm like, I feel like this message was literally explaining what was on that visually on that card, which I thought was fascinating. I mean, that's how this usually works, but anyway, with that, I will read this. I might stutter because that is what I do, but that is fine. So this thing you call kink, it is not really so other from your soul as you humans, you incarnate beings seem to think. At the root of the soul, at the sacral where it tethers down to earth, is play. You frame it as other to help you understand it, as a way to push through the confines you all have created as you live this incarnated existence over time and space. But really, at essence, it is one with you. There is no separation. All just is. And so when you take the time to explore these deepest, darkest corners of desire, to do the things that others deem wrong or perverse, really you are doing exactly as was intended. You are allowing your soul to play, to extend curiosity to places once naturally available to it. You are stepping into truth. And this is why when you play, and we mean when you can really surrender to that space of play and just be in that moment, you feel absolute freedom. This is the freedom we intended for your soul as it entered this corporeal existence, to use this body as a guide to the divine, as a guide through desire and into pleasure. But somewhere that got lost, somewhere the lessons carried over from lifetime to lifetime, the ego of the collective, the fears that come with that, they all got in the way. And now you, our child, you are breaking down those barriers which lifetimes have created. You are a warrior. You are strong. You are fierce. You are loved and you are celebrated. You are the rebellion this world needs to get back to its essence, its root. You are the one to call forth the passion to which you are divinely entitled. Embrace other, embrace kink, and call it forth to the forefront as it is meant to be. Center play and your soul will ascend. Center play and all those lessons, they will be learned. Center play and you, my child, will heal. You, my child, will experience truth. Center play and you will come home. Oh, we have one waiting room person. There we go. Okay, so this is, I'm just gonna say it. When I read these things, I often get chills. I'm not wearing a bra, so like I am perky as fuck right now. But every time I read over those, it's like I'm reading it for the first time, and it just, I don't know, it feels really grounding and like really supportive. But I don't know if anything stood out for you, how that felt for all of you when I was reading through that.
I really liked how it was tied back to play. Because that's like what I think of, right? Like kink gets our brains excited. It gets it like us just excited. And it's the same as being playful. Like, yeah, we're just playing with life.
Yeah. I like the connection part, like to your soul too, because I feel like when you do kink that that's what ultimately what a lot of people are doing. They're just really reaching like deep into like pieces of themselves, like it kind of talked about, that have been sort of pushed to the back.
Yeah, I really loved like how, you know, you're really bringing it back to play, because it makes me feel like whenever I'm kinky, I'm always like accessing that like childlike deliciousness deep inside, that like, you know, like Kayla said, we've been really like pushing down, and we're just like allowing these parts of us to be really in like the deepest aspect of play. I love that, babe.
Beautiful. Thank you all. It's kind of special to like share these channel things with other people. So this has been really fun. I don't know why I decided to do that. It just kind of happened the first one. And I was like, let's just keep it going. Why not? Amazing. All right. So we will kind of dive in. I know we have the questions. We'll see what we get through in the next hour and 20 minutes. And we will start with a roundtable introduction just for anyone who tunes into the recording and for us to get acquainted with each other a little bit. And with that, I'll kind of start it off, and then we'll just go in a circle from me, Kayla, Bess Jordana, just because it's easy to keep track of. And you can share name, pronouns, where you're from, and what kink means to you. That is what we will do for these introductions. So my name is Natalie. Some people know me, some people don't. Either way, it really doesn't fucking matter. We're here right now. She, her, hers. I am the conduit of Soulscape community. I would say one of the co-creators, because really anyone who enters the community is part of that creation. Where I'm from, I live in a place called White Rock outside of Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. And what kink means to me. The first time I heard it defined was in actually a philosophy of sexuality class that I took back in university. And I really liked the way it was described, because it was described as kink being like anything that is like other than normal. And the thing I liked about that was that normal is up to the individual. So like the way I've always explained it when someone asks me, even though I'm kind of like a baby on this journey, is like, if you're like risque is like kissing someone before marriage, like anything beyond that could be kink to you. Like you get to kind of decide. And then like, I mean, there's all these like, you know, different like acronyms and shit and types of play within the community, and becomes this like giant web of what's going on here. But I think that the way it was framed to me in that way made it seem more accessible. And I really liked that, just like anything other than what my normal has been, which relates to a lot of like internalized narratives and blah, blah, blah. But that's like part of the later conversation probably. So with that, I will pass to Kayla.
So I'm Kayla, and she, her, hers. I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And was there one before the kink one? Was it just that? Okay. I think I had a similar definition to kink. I've always just kind of perceived it as being into like weird things and looking for other people who are also into weird things. But I always felt that it was, you know, just a really broad, you know, like, and we don't have to be into the same weird things, but yeah, that's just how I always thought of it, which is of course leaves it open to, like you said, it's really subjective as to what is weird to, you know, what is weird and what is normal to various people. So yeah.
And what is weird might become normal in time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to add in more.
Yeah. And it's cultural too, right? Like, I mean, you know, and progressive. Some stuff that is normal now, if 50 years ago, was very weird, super weird. So
Yep. Yay.
I'll pass it to you.
Thanks. I have the talking stick now. I'm Bess, and I like she and they, so whichever you want to use. Wouldn't it be weird if I wasn't in Tulsa, Oklahoma? I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma as well. Here in the same room.
Oh man, yeah.
I'm not from here, but I live here now, and it's wildly fun to live in the Bible Belt and be a sex positive slut. I get a kick out of it. Anyway, it leads to a great kink community. So kink to me, yeah, I've always heard it described as like whatever is taboo to you. So but I've always liked playing in that. So I don't really know how to define it. It's the stuff I'm into. That is weird, like everything else that I do. It's a little outside the norm, maybe a lot. Yeah, it brings me massive amounts of excitement and pleasure. Thank you.
Donna, it's all you.
Okay, my name is Jordana. She, her, hers. I'm in Byron Bay, Australia. What does kink mean to me? I think my definition of kink changes all of the time, but for me, it's like anything that I feel like is coloring outside of the lines. So wherever those lines are in my like sex life, or even in my like non-sexual existence, if there has been a line there before, like that I've drawn, or that I felt like maybe has been drawn for me, and then I decide to kind of color outside of that, that is, I guess, what I would define kink as.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
Totally remind me of have you all seen the Sex in the City movie? I think it's in the movie. I think maybe it's on the show when Sarah Jessica Parker is like, when big colors, he uses every crayon in the box, and he rarely stays inside the line.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Amazing.
Use all of the colors on me.
Every fucking color. Like, yeah. I'm just thinking what I'm going to do after this. So anyway, awesome. Thank you all. I'm super excited for this. You're all wonderful humans. Yeah, just like all the kinky conversations. So we can like dive into the questions. First one, which always feels weird because I'm answering it first and I'm reading out the question, but like, fuck it. I haven't figured out a better way to do this yet. So when did your journey with kink start? And what do you remember of your thoughts around it? And what came up for me as I was writing this question was like specifically thoughts of self, because I think, you know, that can be a big thing that comes up. But whatever it might be for you, feel free to share. So I've been thinking about this one a lot. So, well, Kayla, you and I kind of like just met. Bess, we've known each other a little while now. Jordana, we've been connected for like 1 or 2 years now, I think, online probably. So like you've seen a whole bunch of stuff. You know way too much about me. The interesting thing, I literally, how do I explain this? I think my journey into kink started before I realized that it was like kink adjacent, with getting more into like sacred sex stuff, like orgasmic meditation and all of that. And honestly, I didn't in my head connect the two, even though I have an urban tantra book which talks about like BDSM and tantra, until like the other day I was on FetLife and like going through the options, and it was like spiritual this, energetic sex. And I was like, oh, that's kinky? I thought that was just like what you do when you like sex and you believe in God or some type of higher power. So I don't know. But okay, for Mom, if you're listening, stop now. My first spanking was in January of like this year.
Hey.
So why I say that is because I am someone who is really open online about where I'm at in my journey and my experience. Because I think that's part of why I'm here. Like, we share our experience, we're of service, we create community, and those communities are important for like growth and healing and like all the things. But sometimes people conflate openness with experience. And I think that's really unfortunate because openness is what it has taken me to have a really like safe and supported entry into kink. And so like I think more people who don't have the experience like need to feel comfortable being as open as I've been like able to be, with bad words, and they don't get that. On the flip side, because I've been so open, people assume I'm farther along. So then they assume I have all this knowledge in like practical experience that I might not have. So it's been a little bit jarring, to be honest. But my thoughts of self, so I'm trying to like, there's a whole lot here. But yeah, so I guess my entry that I was aware of started with joining kink groups in like the fall to like find funny memes, which you've seen I have a lot of. And then my first spanking was in January. And then I was like, oh, this is why those girls at the beach always had those bruises on their, like, I didn't know what was going on. And now I knew. And I was like, I want more. And my thought of self, honestly, I think the main thing that has come up is what I just talked about, which is that I wish people didn't view me as being as experienced as they think I am, because it can make it really difficult at times to have the conversations that I know I need to have. And that comes down to even as simple as like with current play partner and some of the stuff we're exploring that they're more experienced in, they don't want to steer my journey by telling me things that they might want to do. Like they want to leave it to me to like naturally discover it. But the other side of that is I don't even know enough to know how to start discovering. So it can be a really tricky place. And I think like that's not like a well-formulated thought, but like that's kind of where I'm sitting right now, is in that, which we talked about it today, but so that was good. But just that kind of, you know, spot in the journey. It's a little murky, and kind of figuring out where to go from there. Yeah. Kayla, the stick is yours. Yeah.
Yay. Well, and I guess I've like done some thinking back too. And for reference, my main kink is rope bondage. And I've always really liked and been comforted by the sensation of being really bound or really like restricted or confined, or I mean, my entire life since birth, I have felt comforted by that sensation. And so I always, you know, knew sort of that I wanted that sensation. I didn't really know how to go about like I didn't know about rope bondage, so I didn't know exactly like what I was wanting. But and I had up until just probably about 4 or 5 years ago, about 2016 was when I got my first partner who was kinky and introduced me to rope and everything. And before that, I had sort of like negative reactions from partners to things I was like requesting, which was, you know, just stuff I'd say like, you know, can we try these fussy handcuffs and stuff? And but I was getting really negative responses to that from some of my partners. And so I had sort of like, it sort of ties in with like the self part where I've kind of gone through this evolution over time of like accepting that part of myself. Because for a while before I wasn't really looking for a kinky partner or anything. I had sort of decided to like just be quiet about that part because I was getting bad reactions, and I was like, well, you're freaking people out. You're gonna have to stop talking about this. But you know, just this whole awakening of like, not only is this like normal and okay to have this be part of myself, but I'm not the only one that feels like this by a long shot. You know, I had no idea that there were, you know, countless people all over the world who are into the same things and experience the same pleasure and the same sensations that I do from the same things. So that's been really like opening self-awareness wise. And then as I've come more and more into the kink community, it's kind of balanced out the other way too, where it swung the other way when I first got into the kink community and started really meeting and seeing other people, where I felt for a little while that I wasn't kinky enough. Because I was meeting some people that are really hard bottoms. They're really into some really hard play. And I'm not a masochist or a sadist, and so then I sort of swung the other way, where I was like, maybe I'm too vanilla for this whole, I'm like not kinky enough to like be kinky. And so then that's been sort of like that pendulum has been evening out, where I'm like, it's not we're not comparing. It's not a competition or anything. And you don't have to have like a qualifying measure to be considered kinky. So yeah, I think the whole process has been sort of a self-discovery thing for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my turn. Okay, I have to reread the question. Okay, journey with kink. Yeah, so I think like actually doing physical things that are kinky started for me about 2.5 years ago. And I didn't really know that I was kinky, which was funny. But I had hired a sex coach and I was working with her, and I kept having all of these like realizations. And at one point she had me like creating someone who was watching me, because I love being an exhibitionist. So creating like this, fictional character who's just there to watch me, and just like I can feel their eyes. My excitement and pleasure just like shot up. So that was really fun. And then I thought, ooh, I could actually experience this in real life. And I had met my other partner who I live with now, but he had these online chat groups where we would all send naked pictures to each other. And so I met someone in there who was really into, I like pain. So not a lot of pain, but like certain types of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a good match. And so we started playing together, and it just totally opened me up. I had no idea. And I also didn't know that that play with someone could be more loving and connective. So that was I'm glad that that person was my first because they had great boundaries and like helped me kind of identify what some of mine were. And then that they were just like very loving and adoring, which go figure, I love being adored. Specifically thoughts of self. Do I remember my thoughts around it? I was just fucking excited. I was so excited to get to experience pleasure beyond just like genital pleasure, which I've always been good at. But it was just like new levels of awareness and awakening. And I liked what you said, Natalie, about like the energetic, like playing in that, and how like, yeah, they all feed into each other. That like, this is your spiritual sexy self, and this is your kinky one over here, and then this is whatever sensual over here. It's like, no, they're all just fucking each other all at the same time. So yeah. Right. Thank you. That's all.
Oh my God. I love hearing all of this so much. It's just even after all of this time, like so validating when you just like hear other people's like kink stories and stuff. You're just like, oh my God, yes, this life is the best life. Okay, so my journey with kink, I think very like similar to you, Natalie. When I really started studying like a lot of tantra, I was like, oh my God. So like really getting into my emotions and feeling like really a lot of deep pleasure in the areas of my life where I've like really not felt pleasure before, and like allowing like pleasure to really like come in. And that I felt like I was really wrong at the start. Like, you know, like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not meant to be feeling sexy and fun. And then, yeah, that's definitely where my journey started, maybe like 3 years ago, is just like understanding like how I could make parts of my life that I'd chosen to push down really pleasurable, and how that could just bring them to the surface and make them feel like really nice. But beyond that, I feel like my kink is definitely like around like DDLG a lot, but in like a lesbian dynamic, and I just love being baby so much, but like switching it over to like dom sometimes, and I just get so, oh my gosh, just finding like partners that can really lovers that can really like hold that, like it's like almost like dominance laced in softness, and then just being like fully met in all of the ways that I was never met in a heteronormative relationship, number one. But I guess like really like validating the parts of me that I'd made wrong for a really long time. And that's like the best thing about kink for me, is that I feel validated in like the expansiveness of my full sexual expression. And you know, it changes all of the time. Like I'm definitely very switchy, but yeah, I want a mommy and I love being baby. And I guess like my thoughts of self, so funny, like the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is, I say this to myself all of the time, like, you're such a good girl. And I feel like this kind of like started like around like, yeah, the time where I got like more into kink. And that's like a lot of like, when I think back to when it started, like I'm thinking that thought of like, oh my God, yes, when I became a good girl. And I feel like that's what I thought about myself a lot, that I'm a fucking good girl. I hope that answers the question okay.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
There's so many things. So when I come to visit you, for the record, I'm also switchy, and I've been told I make a really good mama. So we can have cuddle time and watch movies if you'd like.
Yes.
And I have some select toys in front of me right now. I was like, I can't bring these on camera. But no, that was beautiful. And I mean, I feel like there could be like a whole other talk about the like DD, LG, MD, whatever, all of it, because there's a whole lot of thoughts. And that segues actually really, really well into the next question for me, which is like the first time, like when, do you remember the first time you played with yourself in a kinky way, and like what led to that moment, and like how did it feel and all that fun stuff? And so, yeah, I am open about these things as much as I can be on like dating profiles, because people need to kind of know. Like recently I had an experience where someone was like talking about wanting to meet. And I actually was like, I was like, so I stopped it. I was like, so what attracted you to my profile? And they like listed like the Akashic records. So I was like, you know, and the kink thing. And I was like, so are you into anything kinky? And they're like, well, you know, I've done a little bit with ropes, like, which probably means like literally tying someone's wrist to like the side of the bed. And like, that was it. And I was like, okay, well, you should know I'm looking for XYZ 24/7. So like, and they're like, oh, okay, I wish you all the best. I was like, good. So anyway, when I met current play partner, we both had a thing in our bio that like alluded to, and this is kind of what led me down this road. And so I think before we even met, I asked like, what does that mean? And I asked, and it led to the conversation about the dynamics we were just discussing, which were completely new to me. And I was like, all I've seen is problematic, right? So I was like very hesitant. But I think part of the cool thing there, and in all of our interactions so far, is this person is very supportive and encouraging of me exploring things on my own, like before we even necessarily try something together, which I had never thought of kink as being something I could do by myself, which is why this panel came to mind. Because a lot of these things, like dom sub, like there are two people. So like, you know, and I had actually I had this interaction at my hair salon. Interaction experience. I was getting my hair blow dried, and he was like, okay, tell me if it gets too hot. And so he'd be like, blow dry my hair, and it would like get to the point where it's starting to burn. But I was like, okay, I can't say anything. It'll only be a couple more seconds. Like I can be okay. I can sit through this. And then it would like build up a couple more seconds, and I'd be like, oh my God, okay, it's almost too hot. And then he'd stop and I'd be like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, is this a thing? And then, oh, sorry, my camera's like as disheveled as I am right now. So I then realized like temperature play exists. I didn't know that. And so then I was like looking up ways to like interact with that. And like, I was always that kid that poured wax on my fingers and like touched the candles, literally put both hands on the fireplace and had to go to the hospital, and then tried to do it again. So like, y'all can infer what happens in my bedroom when I'm alone. And that's the thing. I'd really wanted to try wax play, and I hadn't done it yet because this was all like very quick. I hyperfixate because I'm neurodiverse. So like, as soon as there's a thing, I'm like, oh my God, I need to do all of it, as you have all seen by my recent endeavors. So I met up with this person for like the first time, and I basically ended our interaction being like, so this was fun, you seem cool, and if you want to tie me up and pour wax all over me, like that sounds great, so let me know what you think. And like drove off in my car. So we started hanging out, etc., etc. And at a certain point they said, like, because I mentioned it again, I was like, are you still into trying that, like whatever? And they're like, yeah, totally, but also like, why don't you try it by yourself? And I was like, oh, I can't I? Like it blew my mind that I could do solo wax play. I don't know why, but it did. And so that was like my first like intentionally kinky solo experience, because I also now realize that like for some people like anal sex is really kinky, and like I do that almost every weekend by myself. So like, I don't know, but this was the first like beyond thing that I had done in my world, right? Like anything outside of your normal. And it felt really awesome. Like it felt so empowering, and like the channeling said, like freeing to create that space for myself and let myself experience, and like just to be present, like all I think self-pleasure is, but like in this particular instance, like really being present for that like anticipation and like sensation and everything that came along with it. Ayo. Like it was really awesome. And now I do it every weekend pretty much. I also have burn cream on hand because that's a problem. Fact, have burn cream. But yeah, and I guess how I don't know if there's anything else yet. I feel like that's a big thing. But how I think I honestly, in terms of all this self stuff and like the self kinky stuff, I have for the first time ever, and this comes with the other dynamics we've talked about, because I now have a person who mirrors that for me, which I've never had in my entire life. I was always just like expected to like do the right thing and succeed and like be hyper diligent about all the rules. And now I actually have someone who's like, wow, I'm proud of you for doing that. Good job. And I get to be like, I'm proud of myself. And like, that's how this felt for me, was like, I was proud of myself for taking that time and doing that thing and focusing on my pleasure in a way that I would not have otherwise done. And like, not needing, this is going to sound not the way I intend to, but like, I just say, I didn't need no man to help me do that. Like I did it for me on my own. So anyway, Kayla, your turn.
I think that, I was sort of similar in the fact that when I started out with rope, I was very heavy on the bottom side. And I did not want to learn how to tie rope. I did not want to learn what was going on with it. Like Because I sort of felt, or I had this worry that if I learned anything about it, like if I learned what was going on with it, that would somehow, it was this magic, this extremely magical thing for me, and that somehow if I learned the inner workings of it, the magic would go away. And so I was really like, did not want to do that for a while. But it became clear over time that that rope was sort of something more than like just a kink for me, and it was more than just a sexual need. It was I have generalized anxiety disorder and have struggled off and on with depression, and rope is and has been the absolute best thing for me. I don't know why it works well with those things, but it, you know, really helps me maintain, like it helps me be a functioning human being. And so I started thinking more about that, where I was like, well, it is really, if it's part of my mental health and it's part of my self-care, and it's something that's sort of beyond a want at this point, it's something that's like going to be an ongoing need. It's really not responsible for me to be entirely dependent on someone else to come in and meet that need. Like it needs to be something that I can sort of supply myself with on some level. You know, it would be like if I was on some medication or something that I had to have, and I just handed it to someone else that I didn't live with. Like, well, you have to monitor this medication that I need to function at all times. And so I started learning to, and for a long time, my self-tying was just that. It was really just like practice, and I didn't really have much of an emotional connection to it or like a pleasurable connection to it. I was just sort of trying to lab out, like, you know, how these ties go or whatever. And I think I was really pushed into this connective like breakthrough with it when I had a breakup where I had been in a 24/7 DS dynamic, and that it ended very abruptly, and I sort of went into this massive like sub drop that I, you know, was having a problem getting out of. And it, you know, occurred to me that I could go and do like what I would ask for if I had a partner. I would ask for like a really hard rope scene to get all those emotions out and everything. And I was like, well, maybe I should just try to do this with myself. And I did. I went to one of the local dungeons here on a Saturday night, and I just got myself a little corner, and I blindfolded myself, and I did just a really, really hard scene with myself. And really, I think that was the first time I realized that I could connect with myself in that way, and that I could like give myself what I needed in that way. And so I think that was like a big breakthrough for me with rope, and has been really helpful. Because like I said, when if it's something that you really like need, and it, you know, transcends all these different, like it's not just for sex, and it's not just for pleasure, and it's not it's really like, you know, we're more responsible for you to have some control over that to give yourself. So that's sort of my journey with that.
Thanks.
All right. First time I played to myself in a kinky way. Great question. I guess intentional kink, like for myself, I mentioned I had hired a sex coach a couple of years ago, and first off, because my pussy was numb, and it was very concerning to me, and I couldn't get off, and I was like, I'm broken. What have I done? Little did I know it was just like tons of emotion underneath. So yeah, getting in touch with all of that. Gosh, but I've always been really into fantasy. I've been accused of being in my head a lot, but it's with fantasies. I love like daydreaming and creating things for the future, and it's just fun. I kind of live up there a lot of the time. So when I realized I could actually like get myself off in that area too, I was like, heck yes. So and I used to be so ashamed that I had fantasies all the time, especially in like partnered sexy time. Because I was like, oh, I'm not being present and I should be present and blah, blah, blah. Well, when I released the shame, I was like, oh, this actually enhances what I'm doing. And I get to like bridge the best up here world and the best is body world together. And it's super hot. So I can't think of like the actual first time this happened, but just like finally letting my imagination run wild and just enjoying it so much. It's great. I don't self-tie as much as Kayla does, even though she's gotten me lots of rope and I've learned a lot and I don't do it. But yeah, mine's more in the head, like more imaginative and creating scenarios, gangbangs and like all the things that I really desire. It's so good.
Relate on that because like I don't enjoy it. I don't watch porn. So like that's also where I'm limited with asking questions because like I don't have a thing to go off of like a lot of people have, truthfully, from just like perusing. But I come up with a lot of freaky shit.
Yeah.
Like it's just it'll come up in the next question is like when to voice it out loud or do I?
Yeah. So I mean, I started
yeah.
fantasizing before I ever watched porn. So like as a very young child, I remember having like wildly kinky, like sexual and like just dominant submission fantasies. And I was like, there's something wrong with me. No, my little brain was just like, yay, this is fun. Okay, I'm done.
Oh my God. I so resonate with both of what you just said. And especially what you were saying, Kayla, like around like I've suffered like severely with depression and anxiety, and kink has been the biggest healer in that area of my life ever. And I just, yeah, like it's definitely like a part of my mission to share that with people because, like having that space, like to drop into kink with somebody else and just like be able to like really work on those parts of your lives and life. And like for me, like just having someone witness like my anxiety and depression that wasn't just like a therapist or anything like that, and be able to like role play it out, like literally, like I can't even explain in words without getting too emotional how that created such an expansive experience inside of my body. But yeah, I just wanted to speak to that. The first time that I did solo play, I don't actually remember, but my favorite thing to do with myself is role playing kind of stuff, and like definitely personifying different parts of my body in particular. So like really allowing my pussy to be at the forefront, and like even like I can't believe I'm gonna fucking say this, but like using like my flaps to talk and just like my pussy lips to make like different kind of like conversations that I wish that other people were fucking having with me, and just like really dropping into that. But I do a lot of mirror work when I'm being like kinky with myself, and like I try on like different roles. Like I love being like Venus and then like pretending to be like Mars, and then like we both fuck me, and it's just like this different kind of like role play. And yeah, I definitely relate to what you said, Bess. Like fantasizing is my life, and just like dropping into like these different kind of experiences that my brain thinks up, and then I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to get home and actually see if I can make this into like some kind of reality. And yeah, it's definitely, even that's been like really healing for my anxiety and my depression, because it's just like given a space where I'm okay with every single part of me. And like, you know, I've role played in such a way where I'm like, okay, like where's the anxiety, and then like personifying that and being able to like bring pleasure into that through like a different personality or a different like sub personality that can really hold space for all of these like fucking emotions and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't really think back to like when this started, but I've always had quite a crazy mind and a hardcore emotional experience happening.
I feel like we really need to plan a vacation with all the panel members in one place. So it'd be like some really kinky fucked up shit, and I'm here for it.
Yes, please. Yes.
Like hardcore rope scenes followed by like DDLG cuddle puddle and like watching like different movies and like yes, and then we just pour an unsexy amount of wax all over all of us and roll around. No, that's awesome. I think honestly, like I'm looking at the questions and we'll get to the questions, but I think we've all touched on this really important part that I know has been coming up a lot for me, which is like how this becomes a way to self-soothe. And that's been something that I noticed like this past week, actually this past month. So I might end up just sharing about the stuff that I wasn't planning on sharing about, and that's fine. Jordana did. Why can't I? I swear everyone who comes on my YouTube channel has a moment, has the vagina flaps playing moment of like, like I'm about to say the thing. Like, yeah. Everyone has it. I have one every episode. It's usually about masturbation, not always, because y'all know too much. But Bess and I had talked about this in some messages too. I won't share like details, but talked about like these things being brought into day to day. I'm gonna fix my camera quickly. And not just being limited to like even solo sexual experiences. Like a lot of these roles, a lot of these tools that we pick up in the world of kink, like they can help us process a lot of stuff and can be really supportive in the day to day. And that's what I've noticed. So like since I started dabbling into DDLG, and I'll call it this, but this isn't really how I think of it at this point, but like age play or age regression. So I'm almost 30, and I realize that like some of these things that I'm now doing to like help myself relax, for example, this thing, which is actually recommended for people who are ASD and like ADHD as a self-soothing technique. I wasn't fully relaxing. Like I wasn't. Like I could do all of these things that I've been taught, but something wasn't fully turning off until I started to integrate some of these other aspects. And what I noticed was like, not the more I do that, because it's obviously not this thing that I'm doing like 24/7 when I'm off the computer, because like then I might be a little bit concerned. But like, I'll say the more I consistently integrated it, even like 10 minutes a day, the more I was able to show up in like my day job, working in insurance, having to be super alpha and like training 10 people. So then I was like, okay, well, what's going on? And I realized like I never learned to self-soothe in my first 29 years of life. And like I'm finally figuring it out. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that I'm going like all the way back to point 1 to like show up at point 30, because I skipped out somewhere because of how I was expected to show up in the world. And it's been like, that too has been super freeing, but it's been necessary. Like that's how it feels. It's necessary. Like we might find it in different ways, but for me, it's coming up in this like kinky, wonderful world. And that's how I've learned about it. And I just did that on camera, and that's fine. Because you know what? Everyone deserves that moment where they get to feel like you're not a mistake. Like, I think that's what's coming up for me right now. And like the healing that comes from it is, what is up with this camera, is like so important. Sorry. And like, yeah, I'm just kind of like sitting in that. So thank you all for sharing your experiences about how it's been supportive for you healing. Because I think more people need to know about that aspect of this too, not just like the dirty, sexy time and the whatever. It can actually help with some deep processing when approached in a healthy, supportive way. And like, disclosure, if you don't know what that way is, a whole bunch of people here to talk to, and like, y'all know me, guaranteed I know someone you can talk to. So like, feel free to reach out. Just throwing that out there. The next one, I'm looking at the time, so I want to be mindful because we have about half an hour left. Have you noticed a difference in the pleasure experience, or even like how you engage in solo kinky play versus like partnered group, multi-person, not the in your head ones, kinky play? Because I I say that as someone with those experiences as well. I think the biggest thing for me in this is like, I still definitely hold back on what I will vocalize to a partner, because I have processing to do around like self-acceptance. And so I take my time. I will ask a lot of questions. I'll find out a lot of stuff, but like my mind is constantly running. So, I mean, my like week of processing is probably equivalent to like someone else's like 2 to 3 months. And I'll sit with it and think about it and wait. I do still have difficulty voicing my stuff. I think partly because it's so new, partly like purity culture bullshit, heteronormative scripts, etc. But I'll go on the new side for this conversation. Just because it's new, I don't fully know it yet because I have no frame of reference. I doubt like, is this even a thing? But like, it's all a fucking thing. And I think the other thing, lots of things right now, is like, you do the same thing as someone else, and what you get out of it and your reason for doing it is like totally different. And that is something really important that I realized this week, because that allows me to explore things without like some preconceived notion, right? And then I'm genuinely just exploring, and it takes some of that pressure off of it when I realize like kink literally can be anything I want it to be, and it is mine 100%. And that's pretty fucking cool.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I saw that like coming up from like internal, then you're like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, end scene. I will pass on to Kayla. So whatever ramblings you feel like, and then also if you've noticed any difference or whatever between like solo and like partner time.
Well, definitely, I agree with the first part that you were saying about sort of helping you get in touch and process things, really heavy things that have happened, or or really old things that have happened, things that you have needed to process your whole life and just haven't like really known how to, or I've started playing with that more in sort of a I don't really age regress. I sort of always stay the age that I am, but I am playing more and more with like sort of nurturing that inner child stuff. And so I will, and I have, I'm fortunate to have partners that support me in doing those things. So, I used to be very like, I'm not a little. And as I'm like building my blanket fort, and I've got like my color book and like a bowl of marshmallows, and I'm gonna watch Little Mermaid, and I'm like, I'm not a little, like and so I'm sort of nurturing that more, where like just yesterday I was remembering a cartoon that I really liked from my childhood, and I was just like, I was with my dominant, and I was like, can I watch this cartoon like right now, and can I also eat ice cream? And like, just like, yes you can. I'm like, can I have my blanket? And so and just having someone like safe that acknowledges those spaces in you and wants to like be nurturing to them is so validating and healing and just wonderful to experience. And So I just wanted to say that I really resonated with that part of what you just said. As a rope, at this point, I'm a rope switch. So I bottom and I top, and definitely self-tying makes me better at both of those things. Bottoming, I push myself harder in rope when I'm self-tying than I do with others. I get a little bit more crazy and more experimental, and because it's sort of like if you're bottoming and you're trying some newer, harder thing out, you sort of have to like be able to, you have to stay where you can like communicate where you're at with this thing. But if you're, if I'm with myself, I don't have to worry about that piece. Like I know when it's getting too intense or when I've reached my limit or whatever. So I feel sort of safer in some ways to just do like wilder things. But it helps me like figure out what the limits are for me physically and emotionally in rope. And then definitely as a, it helps me connect better as a top. So I think that my self-tying enhances my play with others just immensely.
Which I'm very grateful for.
It helps me tie up this person even better.
To learn that, because I definitely gave myself a 2nd-degree burn from a hot water bottle that was supposed to be addressing pain, not causing more of it. So like, that was problematic. My video this past weekend was the brave little toaster. And like we both just got super snuggly and like alternated cuddling the other person, and it was just like a magical moment in time. So I love
that. I also love the Brave Little Toaster. It's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 3 of them. Did you know that?
I didn't know. I knew there was 2, but not.
I only knew there was 1.
I have 2. Oh, you're missing out. Anyway, I'll pass on to you. I'm getting water, but I can still hear everything.
Okay. Let's see. Solo versus kinky. Yes, there's a difference. Next question. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm just gonna go into my own thing here, but the biggest area that I use my solo kinky play in is honestly my business. Like when I learned how to turn like all the areas where I was holding myself back, and I mean there's still some, I'm not perfect, but when I learned how to like kink myself into like doing these things, it's been a wildly pleasurable journey in business, which is what I desired to create in the first place. So like my dominant role, that's like what I use in business for damn near everything. Like she loves to make spreadsheets, she loves organization. I dom all of my clients lovingly. Yay. But it's just like it's the energy that's like I don't know, it gets my things done and it makes me really happy. So I absolutely love that. But I've also found that I have to like keep a balance of that, because if I'm always in dominant, then at times I'm like, when's someone gonna like hold the space for me and I can like, so I get that sometimes with Kayla. Yay. Yeah, I don't know. That's my answer to that question. I don't know how that get turned around, but that's all I have for now. You can go. Thanks.
You're muted.
Shit. I was just saying, I love that. And yeah, fuck yes to using your kink to make your business feel really luscious and amazing. And I definitely do that as well. So there is no being baby 24/7 in my business. Otherwise, nothing would fucking get done. And yeah, existential kink really helped me like understand all the ways that I was like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh yes, I do love being poor all of the time. Or like, yeah. But okay, actually, I need somebody to remind me of this question. What was the question again?
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference in the pleasure experience from solo kinky play versus partnered or group kinky play?
Okay, yes. Yeah, because often I'm seeking different things in those different experiences. Like when I'm solo kinky play, I'm often already feeling safe enough to, I guess, like stretch my window of tolerance and to be like more kinky with myself, or like to understand like my own different kinks and stuff. And when I'm with somebody else, like depending on like, you know, subjectivity and context, I'll, yeah, like that safety kind of like ring might not always be there. And that's something that I like deeply desire. So yeah, the experience is always going to be different, depending on how safe I'm feeling in that moment and what I'm truly wanting to get out of it. I don't know. That's my answer to that.
Awesome.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
Y'all are so funny. There's no like specific structure. It's reminding me of like in school. But it's like, what did you do after school? And you're like, after school, I like you use the end of the question to like answer the question. It's okay, Jordana, you did perfect. You're such a good girl. Okay, so head pats. So no, that was all beautiful. Everything is exactly as it is meant to be. The next question, I feel like I kind of already answered this, but we can scan if anyone wants to fill in some more details. It's just, what has your biggest apprehension or difficulty been as you entered this wonderful kinky world of life? Yeah. Anyone feel like, because I think I did answer that already. Anyone feel like jumping in? You want to just go in the order?
I think my biggest apprehension, I mean, I didn't know enough when I started coming into kink to be like appropriately apprehensive. Like I sort of just like, you know, barreled my way into it and then was like, oh, like some of these things could be dangerous. Like I should, you know, make some boundaries or something. But I think, I think finding like the right partners has probably been the most challenging thing. As I mean, like with rope, it can be like an added level of challenging because there's just I mean, depending on where you live. I mean, I was lucky that here there's still, like when I came into it, especially, there was a decent size rope community going on, but rope is not something you can just it's not a kink you can just pick up and learn, like know how to do the first time you start doing it. And depending on where you're at, there may not be anyone around you that knows how to play that way. So it's fine, and that knows how to do it safely. So I think rope has an added level of, and even in Tulsa now, if you want to do rope, as far as finding like experienced stuff, if you're a bottom, you have a very limited amount of people that you can choose from to even start having those conversations with. So I think that's the most, probably the most difficult has been finding compatible play partners the whole time.
Yeah, I'm just picky. I'm like super picky.
Should be.
Yeah, just in general. I mean, dating in general, I'm like, like I know right away if I like someone or not. So
I somehow made it through the cut.
We met online. We met on Instagram.
Yeah,
which I love. I kept sharing pictures of like pretty rope stuff, and then she started commenting, and then before you know it, she's sending me her questionnaire, and I filled it out.
Yeah, I'm super thorough with negotiations because I've had experiences that have taught me to be apprehensive. And so, I have like I think it's up to like 34 questions now, but I have like I'm like, you fill out this form And
I'm
so
like, yes, please. I will
she
fill out
filled out the
your form.
form. So
I love filling out forms, so it's perfect.
That's awesome. Do you feel like
I was just checking out the question.
go for it?
What has been the most difficult? I feel like my attachment style has been the most difficult thing for me to kind of like navigate in the world of kink, because when I'm being like met on that level of like, I can be these aspects, I can really like be the fullest expression of myself, and that's being met. But then I want to like live in this like open relating or like poly kind of like lifestyle, but then I have this like deep part of me that gets so attached to anybody that can like meet me at the place where I feel like my entire life I haven't really been met. And that's like recently in the past like year and a half, like that's been the biggest thing that I've been journeying with, is like understanding this like anxious attachment that I deeply have, that's obviously like come up from like childhood and stuff like that, but how that plays out so severely when I'm met like with these like deep parts of me that like really wants to be met. And it's been like, to be honest, like fucking really difficult. Like I feel like I've had some severe heartbreaks around like kinky, the endings of like kinky relationships and stuff. Like I've been dropped to my knees in this kink world more than I was ever dropped to my knees like in, I guess, like the vanilla world. And that's it's cracked my heart open a little bit, a lot.
Can relate. As you know, because you get all my voice memos.
Yeah.
Jordana's my wonderful coach and friend. Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that, because when I'm doing an aside, this is where I stand to the right of the podium, so it's like not part of the official lecture, right? So yes. When I started entering this whole DDLG thing, and also having a play partner versus like a fuck buddy, like, because I knew like friends with benefits in like the traditional sense of the term, which literally is like, hey, you up? Yeah, comes over, like watches a cartoon, and then you have sex and they leave. And it's like very like stereotypical P and D thrusting, and then I'm out and I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever. But a play partner, at least in my experience so far, it's very different. Like there is a buildup of a rapport and like an emotional connection, and there's these conversations, and like and for me at least, especially in like a DDLG type situation, there's that like, I'm proud of you, like I want to see you succeed, like. But what my friend pointed out, they're like, those things can be part of a dynamic and also be genuine, like it's not just pretend because it's part of this dynamic. And sifting through that with like, however you want to label it for me, like attachment style, past life wounding, trauma from like literally trauma from childhood, but like I'm aware of it, so I know if it's like crossing a boundary and like it gets talked about and like whatever. I know stepping into it that like, you know, at the time that things transition or they end, it's gonna be fucking hard because it offers all of that stuff. The other thing though is like, I know I can get through it because like in small doses I already am, as I process and I like re-articulate what's going on, and I deserve to have those things, and this is showing me that. And like that's huge, as much as parts of it might be super painful. I don't know if that resonates for you, Jordana, but like that's how it's kind of come up for me, at least a bit. Yeah, so anyway, that I just told person that I showed up on YouTube with my passy, and they're like, oh no. Yep, it's happening. Beautiful. What has been the most liberating experience so far? And I think I've already kind of touched on this because I'm like such a baby in this world, so I will skip on down to Kayla.
Most liberating experience. And touching on what you said also about, and what Jordana said about like relationships and stuff, I have had to be sort of honest with myself too, that like, you know, just sexually in the vanilla world, I tend to be pretty demisexual anyway. And there's like a part of me in like kink world that like, you know, in theory wants to come in and be like super slut and just like play with like whoever, whenever, like I just come in and do a scene. And then like, I've had to be realistic with myself over time and be like, you're not going to be able to play that way. Because I just, I get really attached to, and so if I find someone that I have a really good energy exchange with or something, but they are just feeling it for the scene or whatever, I on my end am not going to be able to turn that attachment off when playtime's over, when the scene, it's going to keep going and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I have learned to be more honest with myself and with my partners and be like, you know, some things like if you want it to just be a casual thing, then it's probably not a good idea that we play together, because this is just going to keep going. I'm going to get attached to you in ways that are unwanted. And so being more honest with myself about that has like really, you know, really helped a lot. I think kink overall has been, overall the whole thing has been liberating for me. If, you know, someone had told me, you know, 10 years ago that I would sort of have the self-awareness that I have, or have the experiences that I have, or have the relationships that I have now, I totally would not have believed them at all. So I have, you know, covered sort of pieces of myself that I had no idea were in there. And I feel like I'm still just at sort of the shallow end of that. I feel like I sort of discover more and more pieces and layers under there all the time. So yeah, I think the whole journey has been really freeing and liberating, and to have all those pieces be like, as they surface up, come in contact with people, even when you're not in relationships with them, but just the kink community in general. Other people that are like, yeah, I experience this too. I feel this way too, or I have this need too. You know, or just have people, a girl that I tied with just a few weeks ago, she was like, I don't want any relationships, but I just want to meet some more like kinky people. She was like, because I just have to talk about this with someone, and I can't have, she was like, I need people to stop looking at me like I'm crazy when I try to talk about it. And so I was like, I got you. Like, so just having that, a community of people where you can just admit all of these things, and they do not look at you like you've lost your mind, or like there's something wrong with you. That alone is super liberating.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we have a great community here, and like the polyam community too is just really supportive. Sometimes I forget that I'm like probably in a bubble and I meet regular people here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm weirding you out like with everything.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, hold on. Tone it down a little bit. Yeah, the most liberating thing I think for me is realizing that some of my fantasies can become reality. And I think for a long time I would tell myself, oh, I can't have this, because I had an expectation of what it would look like. Like, oh, I can't have a gangbang because I don't actually like want that, like strangers and all this and that. And then I had someone ask me, well, what if you could like put specifically who you want into that gangbang? And I was like, I could do that, right? Like I could have the gangbang of my dreams with like the safety that I really crave in, I think we all do in kink, right? And then get to like explore and have fun on top of that. And so this still hasn't become reality. I'm just throwing it out there in case, you know, the universe is listening.
You deserve the gangbang of your dreams.
We're manifesting it with you. Don't even worry. And lately I've been on point. Like shit's been weird. I'll have to tell you after this. So like if you want it, I can get it for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the most liberating thing, is just being like, oh, I can actually like I get to create my reality like the way I want it. It's amazing.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. I couldn't agree more with you, Bess. Like, you get to live in the fantasy that's inside of your head, and it becomes tangible. And it's so exciting. And I definitely feel like that's one of the most liberating things, as well as being completely seen by myself and by others in the fullest expression of, you know, my sexuality as it's playing out in that moment. And I feel like that's something that, you know, like growing up in like purity culture and stuff, like I definitely felt like I had a little bit of a disease because I was always into women, or like always into like something that wasn't like, you know, heteronormative. And so just like being in a space where not only like, you know, is my queerness like completely fucking accepted and seen, but every other aspect of my fantasies can show up there. And not only are they not a disease, but they're like fucking celebrated so hard. And like, I feel like that is so liberating, when all of these parts of me that I've spent a lot of time just being like, why do you have to be like that? To now just being like, oh my God, they're so, I wouldn't like give them up for anything. Like, it's clearly like a deep part of my existence, and being seen in that is really lush and delicious.
Like, I love this whole conversation. I also like that I like was edging myself on camera talking about a blow dryer. So I'm just thinking back to that moment. You're welcome. Except PayPal. So amazing. Then sorry, my jaw gets really tight. So I do the thing all the time. Final question. Dun, dun. And this will be kind of like a quick little wrap up to, right? Yeah. To everything, because I know we're at the 10-minute mark and I want to give some time before Jordana has to hop into another call, and you know, it's perfect timing, right? We did that. So final question is, what is the next kink that you desire to explore or plan to explore on your journey? It's like, there's so fucking many. There's never ever, there's like combinations of things, or like, you know, like all the little nuances we can come up with. So I guess the one that I've like actually requested to try is rope play. I will be honest, I have like a slight aversion to the tactile aspect of rope. And I know everyone says there's so many types of rope, and like, fair. I also don't know at this point if it's like one of those ASD like sensory avoidant things, or like what it is. I like leather. I don't love rope, but I'm curious to try it. And I'm fortunate to be playing with a person who has experience, so like can do that safely. We're planning to go camping. So I actually was like, can you just like tie me up as we chill around the fire? But like nothing major, just like literally like, so I can feel the rope on my skin and like see how it sits with me and like do that kind of thing. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited because like all of this, like I just described, I can chunk out that exploration into this like tiny little moment that is like comfortable and accessible and feels safe. And it doesn't have to be jumping into this thing where I'm like, not even that it's that major, but like not even that I'm like tied to a bed frame, or like it could be literally like one knot around my arm and it comes off, like whatever it is, not even. And that's cool. And the other thing that I will share on camera that I'm curious about is pet play, specifically kittens, because I don't like dogs. So that is the other thing I have been reading about, because I don't know anything about it. And that is a good way to learn. Yeah. So that's where that is at for me. And how will I go into it? Like I just said, I will chunk it out into small things that feel accessible, and have the conversations, a lot of conversations, because sometimes too, like for me, I'll say the thing and then I'll process, and then something else will come up, and like it needs to be like all of this is like an ongoing discussion with myself and with my like play partner, whoever it is. And when we talk about like being picky about partners, to me, like even if it's a quicker interaction, like if it's not someone who is willing to do that and like give me the space to explain my part, you don't get to be all up in this. And I don't want to be all up in that. That's how that goes, even for a quick thing. So that's where I'm at. So yeah. Kayla, I passed you.
I love how you talked about like taking it in like comfortable like bites. And that like I've sort of learned that over time that there are elements of that I don't have to go like full on in thing. I can just take out pieces of kinks that I specifically like, and I can just do those, and I don't have to go any further with any of it. I sort of do a similar thing with pet play that I do with like age regression type play where I sort of like with the age stuff, I don't really regress in age, I'm sort of childlike without being an actual child. And that's like where my comfort level is. And so I never go past that. And then with pet play, I do something similar where I'm never like a full on, like I'm never a kitten or a puppy or anything, but I sort of like some of the nurturing, caring elements that people have feelings towards their pets. And so like I have a little, at my dominance like desk, like I have a little pet bed and I will like go and like sit in my little pet bed and like so I just pull out the elements that work for me and just use those. And so I think there's a couple different things that I'm curious to do more wax. I haven't done a lot of it, but I have done some, but I do want to do more like kind of combinations of wax with other things, like mixed in with other types of play too. So I'm looking into like exploring that more. And it sounds like it's another thing that is at this point not kinky for a lot of people, still like kinky for me. And that's like anal. And I still am, its appeal for me is not really like the act itself, but it's the fact that I'm not experienced in that sexually. And it's like one of the last things sexually that holds sort of this virginal aspect for me. Like I like the inherent power exchange of like it's something that I need to be helped through. I need to be like guided through it and nurtured through it and taught how to do it because I don't know. And that's really like sort of like the last frontier sexually, like other
Final frontier.
Yeah, the final frontier, because most other things like just sex wise, like I've got it by now. So I'm looking to like sort of explore that more. And that's sort of a new thing for me to kind of go back to the space where I'm in like where I'm really vulnerable in that way, where I'm really like, I do not have experience, I'm not sure how it's going to go. And I need somebody to like hold my hand through it, So, yeah.
I think I need an episode called like anal, the final, or butt stuff, the final frontier. And we can all talk because people have been waiting for me to do an episode on that because I'm like, oh
my God, yes.
Anyway, sorry, I'll stop talking because we have like 4 minutes and Bess, Jordana need to share. Yes.
I'll be quick. So I would really love to make like pornography that is, that, and I always say I want to make porn that I can be proud of so that when and if, family members, friends are like, is this you, Bess? I'll be like, that is me. Like, yes, this. I want to be artistic. I want to be like hot as fuck. I want to be super pleasurable for the people involved and like, lots of real delicious orgasms. How I would navigate that, I feel like I'm really like creating things in my life that could support that. I love being on camera. I love like other people that love doing that stuff. So I feel like it could really come together in like a weekend. So I was actually talking to my partner last night about a scene that we would like to create. And I was like, we could do this. Like we have everything in place.
Let me know.
Yes.
That is so fun. I love I've created a porno before and it was like the funnest thing I've ever fucking done.
Yeah.
So fun. I know that this might not seem kinky to a lot of people, but I really want to be like so good at fucking with a strap on. Like, and I'm just not that good at it. Like I feel like
It's hard.
I get what I've been told.
I get very like it's one of the only things that I'm nervous to do, like in sex. And like I feel like when like most of like the lesbian dynamics I'm ever in, like I'm more of a bottom, and like I love like, you know, like rimming and like eating out and all that kind of stuff. But like when it comes to like putting a strap on, I'm like, what do I do with this? How do I make this hot for you? Like, it looks like this is not fucking fun for you. And then like I get very in my head and I'm like just waving this dick around and I'm like, no. I'm like, I will tame the dick this year. I will tame it and it will be mine and I will be so good at dick downing. And like, I just really feel like that is my next kind of like pathway. I guess like the ways that I'm exploring that now is like I live with a bunch of lesbians, which is like really amazing, and we're always like playing with our strap-ons and like I'm just finding ways to like feel more safe and like confident. I guess like with friends and stuff before I really get into like a deeply sexual situation where I'm like, okay, like I can be this, I can step into this personality and own it.
Can we exchange notes?
Yeah.
I'm getting my harness custom made right now.
Yeah.
And
I
I have
still don't have my own strap on, but I want one. And I need more practice in that too. I get super like, the attitude is right. Like I get super into the whole thing, but then physically I just don't know like what to do.
Literally,
I walk around my condo.
And then I like, you know, I'll be trying to like, you know, get this like stroke down and I'm like, you're doing terrible. This is terrible. Like,
yeah. I'm concerned, but I'm also excited. And I'm sure that the person I explore it with will be patient with me for the first time. It's probably gonna be their first time. Like, you know, we'll figure it out as we go. We're at 6. I don't want to take too much more time. I know, Jordana, you gotta run. I want to say, Kayla, it's interesting because the things you're describing, like I use the term age regression. I don't know if that's right because I don't fucking know the terms, but like a lot of what you were sharing like really resonates with like where I'm at in this too, and just like having fun and seeing what feels good, and like also with the pet, like it doesn't, that's the thing, there's like this archetype and it's like our experiences don't have to be that, and that's where I kind of hate all these labels and acronyms because they make the community less accessible. Like if it really could just be what's in your mind, what do you want to play with, and like blank canvas, everyone would be a kinky ass motherfucker. Like seriously though.
Yes.
And that's what we're here to talk about. So I fucking love it. Thank you all so much for taking this time. You are all fantastic humans. I love you so much. I will post the recording. We will all talk soon. Yeah. And Jordana, have a wonderful day. And to Bess and Kayla, have an amazing evening.
Thank you so much, beautiful babe towns.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.